There were guys that elevated their game more. The term superstar.
He called me on the phone and congratulated me.
And come with me this week. Let's go prepare yourself for a golf tournament.
Even Jack Nicklaus couldn't figure him out. The swing looked ugly. The constant chatter seemed like a distraction. He came from nowhere, with no pedigree and no coaching. Everything about Lee Trevino screamed that he didn't belong in the polished world of professional golf. But here's the truth, the legends themselves had to admit. No one was like him, and that's exactly what made him impossible to beat. So how did a self-taught hustler from the dirt courses of Texas end up haunting the greatest golfers alive? Lee Trevino was born into deep poverty in Garland, Texas. Raised by his mother Juanita and his grandfather Joe, a gravedigger, Trevino's childhood was defined by work. He was picking cotton in the fields by age 5. There was no time for being a kid. As he later said, "I never had a childhood." He dropped out of school after 7th grade to work full-time, but his real education was happening right beside the 7th fairway of a golf course where his family's shack stood. He started caddying at the Dallas Athletic Club, carrying bags for men who lived in a world he couldn't imagine. That's where the game started. Money games. The caddies would bet their daily wages on who could hit the best shot. Lose, and you might not eat that day. That's where Trevino learned what he called his killer instinct. It wasn't about trophies. It was about survival. His graduate education came at Tennyson Park, a Dallas municipal course that was famous for high-stakes gambling. It was a world where you had to size up another man in an instant, where your reputation and your money depended on your ability to perform under crushing pressure. Trevino learned to play on bad grass, good grass, and every kind of terrible lie you can imagine. The hardpan Texas driving ranges taught him creativity. He had to develop more shots than other players because he didn't have the luxury of perfect conditions. His most famous quote captures the psychology he carried with him forever. You don't know what pressure is until you play for $5 with only $2 in your pocket. When he eventually played in a US Open, the stakes felt like a relief. Fame and glory and a big check were nothing compared to the genuine fear of not having money for your next meal. That inverted sense of pressure gave him a fearlessness his privileged peers could never match. His ability to improvise became legendary. He could play entire matches with a taped-up Dr. Pepper bottle instead of a club. That wasn't a stunt. It was proof that he'd trained himself to make the ball do whatever he needed with any tool in his hand. The moment that proved he belonged came in a legendary money match against Tour pro Raymond Floyd in El Paso. It was a multi-day battle that people followed in pickup trucks, drinking beer and watching like it was a heavyweight title fight. Trevino used his home course advantage and his creative shot making to beat Floyd. He proved to himself and to everyone watching that his hustler's game was already better than the tour's elite. The U.S. Marine Corps provided the bridge to professional golf. Trevino enlisted for 4 years, and the Marines gave him order and discipline. He'd been undisciplined as a youth, but a clerical mistake changed everything. He got assigned to special services and played on the 3rd Division Marine golf team. For 2 years, he played golf 7 days a week. It honed his game and probably saved him from combat in Vietnam. He called it the luckiest break of his life. The final push came from his wife, Claudia. She scraped together $20 for the entry fee to the 1967 U.S. Open qualifier. Trevino showed up at Baltusrol with only $50 in his pocket. He finished 5th, earned $6,000, and was named Rookie of the Year. The next year, he won the U.S. Open. The man from the dirt floor shack had arrived. Growing up on dirt taught him creativity, and that creativity led to a swing nobody had seen before. If you're enjoying this story, hit subscribe so you don't miss more content like this, and drop a comment. Do you think Trevino's tough upbringing was the key to his success? To the golf purists of the 1960s, Lee Trevino's swing was completely wrong. It was self-taught, ugly, and it made golf instructors shudder. Trevino himself joked about it. "My swing is so bad I look like a caveman killing his lunch." But that ugly swing was actually a work of genius. For a hustler playing for his last dollar, the snap hook was a nightmare. A snap hook is when you aim right for a fade, but the ball hooks hard left instead. That kind of mistake could cost you everything. As Trevino said, the hook won't listen, but you can talk to a fade. So he hit thousands and thousands of balls off the hardpan Texas dirt, systematically designing a swing that made the snap hook impossible. His setup was the key. He stood with his shoulders, hips, and feet aligned way to the left of his target. Then he aimed the club face at the target. That made the club face open, relative to his body. From that position, he swung with a powerful lateral hip slide toward the target, swinging down the target line instead of his body line. This created what he called a push fade. The genius of this system was simple. Your wrist can't roll over and surprise you with a snap hook. You don't have to worry about releasing early or late because, in effect, you don't release at all. This hook-proof system produced legendary consistency. It let him hit his signature low, controlled fade to hit fairways and greens with stunning regularity. Jack Nicklaus himself called Trevino the greatest ball striker of his time. Trevino's own secret was pragmatic. "My secret is the back of my left hand. The back of the left hand mirrors the face of the club club, so I just follow the ball down the line with my left hand to keep the ball on line. It was a simple, repeatable feel that he could trust completely. But the swing was more than mechanics. It was an act of defiance. In an era when golfers were supposed to conform to textbook models, Trevino's swing declared that he would make the game fit him, not the other way around. "You own your swing," he said. "You're not going to change it." It's like trying to teach a guy to walk differently, because no instructor would ever teach his swing. Trevino was its only architect and mechanic. That made him immune to paralysis by analysis. When things went wrong, he knew exactly how to fix himself mid-round. He didn't need to call a coach or second-guess his technique. This total self-reliance was a different level of mastery that his peers couldn't access. And with a swing he trusted completely, his mind became his deadliest asset. Trevino entered the PGA Tour with a psychological armor his competitors couldn't penetrate. His swagger, self-belief, and natural ability were forged by a drive born of deprivation. Pressure meant survival for him. The majors felt easier than the money games back home. He freely admitted to using gamesmanship. His Merry Mex persona wasn't just for show. It was a device for controlling the entire competitive environment. The most famous example happened before the 1971 U.S. Open playoff against Jack Nicklaus at Merion. On the first tee in golf's most tense atmosphere, Trevino pulled a rubber snake from his bag and tossed it at Nicklaus. A spectator screamed. The Golden Bear laughed. The tension broke. Trevino had shattered Nicklaus's stoic focus and humanized the game's most intimidating figure. He shot 68 and won the U.S. Open. Another legendary moment came when Trevino was first paired with Nicklaus. Jack, who preferred silence to maintain his intense focus, politely told Lee he didn't like to talk during rounds. Trevino's reply became famous. "That's okay. You don't have to talk, you just have to listen." That wasn't just a witty comeback. It was a declaration of control. Trevino's constant, jovial chatter wasn't meant to annoy opponents. He used it to calm himself. But by filling the silent, internal, focused world of his competitors with his world, the fast-paced, verbal, external world of the caddy yard, he forced everyone to play the game on his terms. He created his own home course advantage at every tournament. His hustler's ability to size people up manifested in planting seeds of doubt. Once, when the press asked if his competitor Jay Siegel had a weakness, Trevino praised Siegel's entire game before adding, "If I had to pick a weakness, it would be his wedge play." As Trevino predicted, Siegel read the comment and started overthinking every wedge shot. Trevino had made his opponent think about his mechanics, which is the kiss of death in golf. He wasn't just playing the course, he was playing his opponent's mind. This mental edge explains why even the greatest legends struggled against him. The ultimate proof of Trevino's unique greatness comes from the legends he defeated. He earned deep, multi-dimensional respect from golf's big three, Nicklaus, Player, and Palmer. He beat them on the scoreboard and earned their respect on their own terms. Trevino's career is forever linked with Jack Nicklaus, the man widely considered the greatest of all time with 18 major championships. But when Trevino was in the field, the Golden Bear was mortal. The statistics are staggering. In the 4 major championships where Lee Trevino and Jack Nicklaus finished first and second, Trevino won all 4. In 1968, Trevino won the U.S. Open, beating Nicklaus by 4 strokes. It announced his arrival. In 1971, he beat Nicklaus in an 18-hole playoff at Merion, winning 68-71. That's the ultimate test of nerve. In 1972 at Muirfield, he stopped Nicklaus's bid for the Grand Slam, winning the Open Championship by 1 stroke. And in 1974, he outdueled Nicklaus at the PGA Championship, winning by 1. Nicklaus's respect was absolute. When asked after the 1971 playoff if he felt he gave it away, Nicklaus offered the highest praise. "No, Lee beat me." He later admitted, "He had a knack for playing some of his best golf against me." The greatest sign of their mutual respect came at that 1974 PGA Championship. On the 18th green, Trevino was choking badly after a 3-putt on the 17th hole. He had a 2-foot putt for the win, but Nicklaus had a birdie putt that could tie. Fearing he would faint, Trevino did something unheard of. He asked Nicklaus if he could put out of turn. Nicklaus closed his eyes with a little grin and said, "Go ahead." It was an act of profound personal understanding, a concession from one giant to another. Gary Player admired both Trevino's personality and his mechanics. As one of the game's great swing analysts, Player identified hidden genius in Trevino's homemade swing. He noted that Trevino had the longest flat spot at the bottom of his swing. It's a long, shallow path through the ball, the true hallmark of elite ball striking. Player famously associated that trait with Ben Hogan. He saw the textbook result inside the unorthodox package. Trevino's relationship with Arnold Palmer was built on mutual respect for grit. When Palmer played his final competitive round on the Champions Tour, he was paired with Trevino. After Trevino birdied the first 2 holes, Palmer gave him a good ribbing, telling him not to embarrass him like this. Trevino saw Palmer as a kindred spirit. "Arnold and I were alike in that way." He respected Palmer's grind. Tom Watson, another of the game's greatest ball strikers, respected Trevino's mastery. Trevino was a short game artist with unparalleled wedge play. Watson, himself a short game virtuoso, would have deeply respected that creativity and shot-making ability that set Trevino apart. So why did all these icons say Trevino was different? Lee Trevino was different because he was an unsolvable puzzle. He was the complete, seamless integration of his story, his swing, and his mind. His greatness wasn't wasn't a single skill. It was a closed-loop system where every part fueled the others. His origin story, shaped by struggle not privilege, became his operating system. It gave him unconquerable mental toughness and a killer instinct. His swing was total self-ownership, created by a hustler to be hook-proof. It proved that being different in golf is okay and that genius always lies in the extremes. His unforgettable personality and constant chatter weren't distractions from his game. They were his game. It was a device for controlling the competitive environment and dismantling opponents' focus. His hustler background made him a shot maker who saw the game with absolute clarity. His philosophy was devastatingly simple. The easiest shot is the best shot. Don't invent shots from trouble. He had a purpose for every shot. These elements formed an unbreakable whole. His hustler's past necessitated his hook-proof swing. His hook-proof swing enabled his creative shot making. His creative shot making was fueled by his supreme mental toughness, and his mental toughness was expressed through his psychological gamesmanship. His peers were on a different level from everyone else, but Trevino was on a different level from them. The other legends had archetypes. Nicklaus was the new Hogan, representing power and precision. Palmer was the charismatic hero. Player was the global fitness pioneer. They were understandable evolutions of the game. Trevino was a revolution. He came from outside the system. You couldn't prepare for him. You couldn't practice against his swing. You couldn't simulate his mental model. You couldn't win a verbal sparring match with him. He was one of one. To beat him, you had to beat the whole man, not just his golf swing. And that one-of-one identity turned into a legacy much bigger than trophies. Lee Trevino's legacy is etched in statistics, but it's defined by his cultural impact. On paper, his career is staggering. 6 major championships, 29 PGA Tour victories, and another 29 on the Champions Tour. He's one of only 2 golfers in history, along with Tiger Woods, to win the US Open, the Open Championship, and the Canadian Open in the same calendar year. He did that in 1971, but his true legacy is as Super Mex, the Merry Mex, the man who redefined what it meant to be a champion. His most profound achievement was the democratization of golf. As a common man of Mexican-American heritage, Trevino broke barriers in a sport that lacked diversity. He provided a hero for the poor, the minorities, and everyday people who saw in him the embodiment of the American dream. His famous sombrero-adorned golf hat is now in the collection at the National Museum of American History, a testament to his cultural significance. The 1971 Sports Illustrated article that named him Sportsman of the Year captured his impact perfectly. What Lee Trevino has done is take the game out of the country club boardroom and put it in the parking lot where everybody, not just doctors and lawyers, but Indian chiefs too, can get at it. This was the democratization of genius itself. Before Trevino, the image of golf genius was either the stoic, perfect mechanic like Hogan or the privileged, aristocratic gentleman like Bobby Jones. Trevino proved that genius could also look like a poor, wisecracking, 8th-grade educated man with a caveman swing. He inspired generations of self-taught and unconventional players, including modern stars like Tony Finau, proving that greatness is not about pedigree. His legacy is also one of authenticity. In an era before polished personal brands, Trevino's brand was simply himself. He was the same man on the 18th green of the US Open as he was in the caddy shack or a high-stakes money match. He was both a ruthless competitor with a killer instinct and a beloved, approachable entertainer. He proved that authenticity itself could be a different level of greatness. Everything about Trevino, his poverty, his swing, his mouth, his creativity, collided with golf's elite system. Golf's polished, privileged culture didn't know what to do with him. The legends themselves couldn't solve him. They couldn't figure out how someone who broke every rule still dominated the game they'd mastered. But Trevino's difference wasn't a flaw. It was the source of his greatness. He proved that genius doesn't need pedigree, polish, or tradition. He showed that a man who builds himself from nothing, who creates his own swing, who refuses to play by someone else's rules, can reach heights that even the most privileged competitors can't touch. That's why the legends say he was on a different level, because while they climbed the traditional ladder of greatness, Trevino built his own ladder from the ground up. He arrived at the top having played by his own rules, with his own swing, and in his own voice. He forced the entire golf world to play his game. Lee Trevino wasn't just on a different level, he was in a different world, one he had built entirely by himself, and that's a legacy no one else can claim. If this story inspired you, make sure you're subscribed for more deep dives into golf's greatest legends. And let me know in the comments, who's the most underrated golfer you think deserves this treatment next?